Robert Bresson is a French film writer-director known for his minimalistic approach to filmmaking. He is known to possess a strict rejection of dramatized realism. He found professional actors to be overacting and used sets occasionally. Instead, he preferred to use locations, hired non-professional actors, and rarely scored his films as he adheres to a raw and stark aesthetic, which is his vision of realism. Bresson's early life is still a mystery today, but most people would agree he lived a life revolved around art. He studied painting, excelled in languages and philosophy at Lacanau. After graduation, he took a painting career but felt too anxious whenever he paints. Hence, he rarely practices the art. He also dabbled in photography and was a talented pianist who frequently plays. And in the 1930s, he fell in love with cinema after watching Charlie Chaplin, and he wrote his first screenplay in 1933 titled It Was a Musician. And with the right context, he made his first surreal comedy, The Public Affairs. However, his film career was put to a halt by World War II. Germany and France were at war. Unfortunately, Robert Bresson was captured by the Germans and was kept in a war camp as a prisoner of war for 18 months. However, it served him an experience that became one of his formative themes in his films. After World War II, France reverted back to pre-war French cinema traditions. Some of the traditions include following a straightforward narrative, a dictatorial plotline, and adapting literary works. At the same time, France experienced a boom in cinephiles, which means lovers of film. As film was their main source of entertainment, people subscribed to cineclubs and film journals. It created a generation of film critics, and approaching the 50s, young filmmakers and critics alike start to grow sick and criticize the big-budget film productions due to their complacency. And here enters the French New Wave, also known as La Nouvelle Vague, an assault on the pre-war French cinema. The new generation of French filmmakers also have an extensive knowledge of Western cinema. They possess a radicalized rejection of traditional French filmmaking and conventions, and pursued their own individualistic styles through breaking rules or through experiments. Filmmakers of this era explored realism, ambiguous endings, and social or political narratives. Moreover, the French New Wave is an era of very personalized films. Filmmakers incorporate personal details of their life into their films or create films with the same themes throughout their career, which caused François Truffaut to come up with the auteur theory. Auteur, as explained by John Caughey, is a director who is genuinely an artist, an author. A film is more than likely to be the expression of his individual personality, and that this personality can be traced in a thematic and/or stylistic consistency overall or almost all the director's films, which means that the director must exhibit himself in his films in a unique style in terms of themes and techniques, and must be consistent throughout most of his work. Robert Bresson, according to Truffaut, is one of the great auteur directors in French cinema. In this video, we are looking into Bresson's cinematography and sound design to see what makes him a great auteur. First off, cinematography. Bresson does not follow conventional cinematography as he deems them as photographing theater. He does not prioritize how attractive the shot is, but how does it evoke feelings. In Bresson's The Trial of Joan of Arc, the trial scene starts with a medium shot of Joan. We can see a spread of spectators at different distances behind her. In this scene, it features other medium shots which feature different people of the council with their reactions and their roles in the trials. Although it did not start with a wide shot nor an establishing shot, with these various shots of the trial, we become oriented with the trial room. Joan is kneeling in the center and surrounded by her enemies. She has spectators at the back, a jury on the right, and the judging panel is in the front. It gives off an idea that she is trapped, and with how each person is blocked, we could understand that everyone in the room is against Joan. Moreover, portraying her only in a medium shot further emphasizes her strong stance and her resolve even in the heat of trials. From these shots alone, It established the space, the story, and the characters with their personality. Bresson's cinematography also eliminates the barrier between the screen and the audience. In another sequence, Joan is being led to the stake, a usual punishment for blasphemy. Instead of focusing on Joan's face and the mass of spectators around her, we can only follow her shuffling feet on a trail of gas leading to the stake that is fully prepared for her. As she climbs onto the stake, the camera tilts up, following her, and the shot holds at the low angle. In this moment, as they tie her with chains, it seems like we are placed as one of the spectators of this execution. Bresson's cinematographic techniques allows us to see the events unfold in a realistic perspective, enhancing the sympathy that we feel towards Joan. In terms of sound design, Bresson hardly used music scores and concentrated on using natural sounds. Sound is a crucial tool in Bresson's A Man Escape. It is about Fontaine, a captured member of the French resistance, who manages to escape the prison with patience and resourcefulness while combating hopelessness in himself and in others. In this film, there are not much visual variety as we follow Fontaine's perspective. Imprisoned in a cell, with restricted views during their slop bucket disposal routine. Although the limited visuals of the film are to emphasize the realistic portrayal of the prison, it is still variable or even brilliant due to Bresson's use of sound to provoke an emotional response and to propel the narrative forward. The sound design in A Man Escape replaces what the camera cannot show. Because our perspective is always with Fontaine throughout the film, sound becomes more important in portraying events. For example, is when Fontaine has made a friend by knocking on the walls to communicate, and later in the film, as Fontaine was looking out the small window, we hear the firing squad's gunfire, a sign of someone's execution, which caused Fontaine to immediately jump down from the ledge he was standing on and knocked on the wall with haste. With him, we feel a sense of panic and dread that something terrible happened to his friend. When we hear a series of knocks in response, it allows us to conclude that Fontaine's friend is alive, and a rush of relief engulfs us. Through sound, Bresson was able to expand our awareness of the events happening beyond the four walls Fontaine is isolated in. In most of his films, a recurring theme of imprisonment is present. In his first full-length film, Angels of Sin, Anne-Marie is trapped by the idea of happiness and her religious calling, that she becomes irrational to the point that it costed her life. In A Man Escaped, it is a straightforward example of imprisonment, but also could be an analogy of hopelessness, which is highly influenced by his experience as a prisoner of war. Then in Balthazar at Random, Marie and the donkey experience society's cruelty and imprisoned by their helplessness. Although these films differ in characters and plots, they still hold an experience of being imprisoned, which most likely a topic that is very close to Bresson. But it also shows that anyone and anything can be imprisoned by something. The techniques he employed in his films were effective in achieving the raw humanistic aesthetic he strives for, and because of that he is highly regarded internationally and placed him a respect during the French New Wave. He is even considered to be the precursor of the French New Wave, as his films exhibit characteristics of the film movement years even before the movement began. On the other hand, he is also criticized for being too religious, for not casting professional actors, and for his controlling nature in set. Even with such criticism, Bresson did not change his style to suit the critics, and it was for the better. In a 50-year film career, Bresson made only 13 films. When we compare his earlier films to the later ones, we could see a significant improvement as a director and his style being polished. Despite his pursuit in many forms of art, he actually never studied film in theory. He immediately picked up filming even with no experience. He mostly learned from experience and took notes, and he believed that aspiring filmmakers should study music, painting, and poetry, and not attend film school. Do not mistake it as a discouragement from studying film. He is encouraging filmmakers to consume and learn different types of art to be kept inspired to find one style or even discover a new technique that could be applied in filmmaking. In the end, like a pickpocket, to become a better filmmaker, one must keep making films. I believe that is a call for inexperienced filmmakers to have courage and start making art.